I'm Maya, 22 years old, and I arrived in New York City with a suitcase full of dreams and a heart full of hope. Coming from a quiet, close-knit community in North Carolina, the sheer scale of Manhattan was both exhilarating and a little daunting. I was here for college, ready to dive into a new chapter and embrace everything this vibrant city had to offer. My parents, both educators, had instilled in me the value of hard work and the importance of finding your voice. They always encouraged me to pursue my passions, and mine was storytelling through digital media. I envisioned myself creating content that mattered, that connected people, and perhaps even sparked change. The university campus was a melting pot of cultures and ambitions, a stark contrast to my hometown. I quickly found myself navigating a sea of new faces, eager to forge genuine connections. It felt like the beginning of something truly special, a chance to redefine myself in a place where anything seemed possible. It wasn't long before I met Chloe, Liam, and Sarah. We were in the same introductory media studies class, and we bonded quickly over late-night study sessions and shared anxieties about our first major project. They seemed genuinely interested in my perspective, my background, and my ideas. Chloe, with her infectious laugh, was the first to suggest we form a study group. Liam, quiet but insightful, often offered to share his notes, and Sarah, always organized, became our unofficial planner. We spent hours together, not just on academics, but also exploring the city's hidden gems. Our conversations flowed easily, from class assignments to our hopes for the future, and even our favorite obscure indie films. I felt a sense of belonging I hadn't anticipated finding so quickly in such a vast city. They made New York feel a little less intimidating, a little more like home. We started a group chat, initially for coordinating study sessions and sharing resources. It was a lively space, filled with memes, inside jokes, and spontaneous plans for coffee runs or museum visits. I contributed eagerly, feeling like an integral part of this budding friendship. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have found such a diverse and welcoming group so early in my college journey. They came from different states, different backgrounds, but we clicked. It felt like the universe had aligned, guiding me to the right people at the right time. We celebrated small victories together, like acing a pop quiz or finally understanding a complex theory. We commiserated over setbacks, offering words of encouragement and shared frustration. Our bond seemed to be strengthening with each passing week, making me truly happy. I shared stories about my family, my upbringing, and the traditions that shaped me. They listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions, and I felt comfortable opening up to them. It was a reciprocal exchange, building trust and deepening our connection in meaningful ways. The city itself became our playground. We explored Central Park, discovered hole-in-the-wall eateries in the West Village, and spent afternoons browsing independent bookstores. Every outing felt like an adventure, creating memories I believed would last a lifetime. I truly believed we were building something real, a foundation of friendship that would withstand the pressures of college life and beyond. They were my first real friends in New York, and I cherished their company, their laughter, and their camaraderie. I often found myself reflecting on how different this experience was from my expectations. I had braced myself for loneliness, for the struggle of finding my place, but instead, I had found a group that seemed to embrace me fully. It was a comforting thought. Their easy acceptance made me feel seen and valued, not just as a classmate, but as a person. I felt a sense of security and belonging that allowed me to relax and truly be myself, something I hadn't realized I was craving. Little did I know, this initial warmth was merely the surface of a much colder reality. The cracks would soon begin to show, subtly at first, then undeniably, revealing a truth that would shake my perception of friendship and belonging to its core. The first subtle shifts began almost imperceptibly, like a slight change in the wind. I noticed small comments, sometimes disguised as jokes, about my hair or my music choices that felt a little off. I brushed them aside, attributing them to cultural differences or playful banter. One afternoon, Chloe casually remarked, "Oh, that's such a you thing to say, Maya," after I expressed an opinion on a social justice topic. It wasn't overtly offensive, but the tone implied a certain predictability, a box they seemed to be putting me in. I tried not to dwell on it. Then there were the times when conversations would suddenly shift or quiet down when I approached. It was fleeting, just a moment, but enough to make me wonder if I had interrupted something or if they were discussing something they didn't want me to hear. I dismissed it as paranoia. The group chat, once a vibrant hub, started to feel a little less inclusive. I'd see a flurry of messages, then a sudden lull, only for the activity to pick up again later. It felt like I was missing pieces of the conversation, arriving late to an ongoing joke. I remember one weekend, they made spontaneous plans for brunch in the chat, and I saw the messages pop up. I responded enthusiastically, saying I'd love to join, but my message was met with silence. Later, I saw their pictures on social media, laughing together. My stomach dropped a little, but I quickly rationalized it. Maybe my message got lost, or they didn't see it in time. They must have thought I wasn't serious. I convinced myself it was an oversight, not an intentional exclusion. Another time, we were discussing a new art exhibit, and I mentioned a Black artist whose work I admired. The conversation quickly pivoted to a different, more mainstream artist, and my suggestion seemed to vanish into thin air unacknowledged. It was a subtle dismissal. These moments, individually, felt minor, but collectively, they started to form a pattern, a quiet hum of discomfort beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect friendship. I found myself replaying interactions, searching for a logical explanation. I started to second-guess myself, wondering if I was being too sensitive or misinterpreting their intentions. Maybe I was the one who was different, not quite fitting in with their established dynamic. Self-doubt began to creep into my thoughts. The group chat, which had once been a source of connection, now felt like a window into a world I was increasingly on the outside of. I'd see them planning things, making inside jokes, and I'd feel a pang of loneliness, even when I was physically with them. I tried to initiate plans, to suggest activities, but my ideas often met with polite but firm rejections or vague promises to see. Yet, when Chloe or Sarah suggested something, everyone was immediately on board, eager and enthusiastic. It was a slow, insidious process, like water eroding rock. Each small slight chipped away at my confidence, making me question my place within the group. I started to hold back, to censor myself, hoping to bridge the growing distance. I still wanted to believe in the friendship, in the initial warmth that had drawn me in. I clung to the idea that these were just growing pains, misunderstandings that would eventually resolve themselves as we got to know each other better. But deep down, a quiet alarm bell had begun to ring. It was a faint sound, easily ignored amidst the bustling energy of New York, but it was there. The facade was cracking, and soon the true nature of their acceptance would be revealed. The subtle shifts soon morphed into undeniable patterns, making the group chat a constant reminder of my growing isolation. I'd wake up to dozens of messages, detailing plans for a movie night or a weekend trip, plans I was clearly not privy to until they were already set. My name was never explicitly excluded, but the silence around my presence spoke volumes. I'd often see them together on campus, laughing and sharing stories about an event I hadn't been invited to. When I'd ask, feigning casual curiosity, they'd offer vague excuses like, "Oh, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing," or "We thought you were busy." Their eyes, however, never quite met mine. The most painful part was the deliberate formation of new, smaller group chats. I discovered their existence through a passing comment or a shared photo in our main chat, a photo that clearly showed them together without me. It felt like a secret society operating just out of my reach. One evening, I saw a picture of Chloe, Liam, and Sarah at a concert, an artist we had all discussed wanting to see. The tickets had clearly been bought in advance, yet I had received no mention, no invitation. The exclusion was no longer subtle, it was glaringly obvious. My heart ached with a mix of confusion and betrayal. I replayed every interaction, every conversation, trying to pinpoint where I had gone wrong. Was it something I said? Something I did? The answer, I slowly realized, felt much deeper and more insidious. The conversations in the main group chat became superficial, revolving around generic topics that required no real engagement from me. If I shared a personal anecdote or a deeper thought, it was often met with a quick emoji or a swift change of subject. It was as if my presence in the chat was tolerated, but my actual participation was not truly desired. I was there, but I wasn't there. I was the silent observer, watching a friendship unfold that I was no longer truly a part of. The loneliness became a heavy cloak, even amidst the vibrant energy of New York. I'd walk through campus, seeing groups of friends laughing, and feel a profound sense of isolation. The city, once a symbol of possibility, now felt like a vast, indifferent space. I stopped initiating contact, tired of the polite rejections and the feeling of being an afterthought. The silence from their end was deafening, confirming my fears that their initial warmth had been conditional, a temporary courtesy. The racial undertones, once dismissed as my imagination, started to become clearer. A subtle shift in their language when discussing certain topics. A quick glance exchanged when I spoke about my experiences as a Black woman. It was never explicit, but it was there. I started to question my own judgment, my own worth. Had I misread the signs? Was I inherently unlikable? The self-doubt gnawed at me, making me feel small and insignificant, despite all the dreams I had carried to the city. The group chat, once a symbol of connection, became a digital cage, holding me in a state of perpetual exclusion. I was trapped in a space where I was technically present but emotionally absent, a ghost in my own social circle. I spent countless nights staring at my phone, seeing their active conversations, their shared laughter, and feeling a profound sense of hurt. It was a modern form of ostracization, silent and insidious, yet deeply painful. The weight of the unspoken rejection grew heavier with each passing day. I knew deep down that this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate act of distancing, a quiet dismissal of my presence. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, forcing me to confront the uncomfortable truth that the friendships I had so eagerly embraced were not what they seemed. The next step, I knew, had to be a confrontation, even if only with myself. The silence in the group chat became a physical weight, pressing down on me. Days would pass without a single message directed my way, while I could see their active conversations, their shared photos, and their inside jokes flowing freely. It was a digital ghosting, a slow fade into irrelevance within a space I once considered ours. I saw their stories on Instagram, snapshots of weekend trips, late-night dinners, and casual hangouts, all meticulously planned in chats I wasn't part of. The smiles in their pictures, once warm and inviting, now felt like a cruel mockery, highlighting my absence. Each post was a fresh stab of realization. The sting of seeing them together, thriving without me, was sharper than any direct insult. It was the quiet, consistent message that I simply wasn't wanted. My attempts to bridge the gap, a friendly "How was your weekend?" or a shared article, were met with brief, dismissive replies or, more often, complete silence. I remember one particular afternoon, I saw Chloe, Liam, and Sarah walking together on campus, laughing loudly. I waved, and they offered quick, tight smiles before turning their backs and continuing their conversation, not even slowing down. It was a public display of my exclusion, a stark confirmation. That moment shattered any lingering illusions I had about their intentions. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, leaving me breathless and raw. The pain was multifaceted, the sting of rejection, the confusion of why, and the bitter taste of betrayal. I had invested my time, my trust, and my vulnerability in these people, only to be discarded so casually, so silently. I started to notice how their language around me had changed, subtly but distinctly. There was a condescending tone when they spoke about my interests, a dismissive wave of the hand when I tried to share something meaningful. It was as if my voice had lost its value to them. The racial element, which I had tried to ignore, now screamed at me. Was it because I was Black? Was my perspective, my experience, simply too different, too inconvenient for their comfortable world? The thought was a chilling one, but it felt increasingly undeniable. I found myself withdrawing, not just from them, but from other social opportunities. The fear of experiencing that same quiet rejection, that same invisible wall, became paralyzing. My vibrant New York dream started to feel like a lonely nightmare. The group chat remained open on my phone, a constant, painful reminder of what I had lost, or perhaps what I had never truly had. I would scroll through their messages, a silent observer of a dynamic that had moved on without me. My self-esteem plummeted. I questioned everything about myself. my personality, my intelligence, my worth. The city, once a source of endless inspiration, now amplified my feelings of inadequacy and isolation. The nights were the hardest, filled with endless overthinking and a gnawing sense of emptiness. I missed the easy laughter, the shared dreams, the feeling of belonging. But more than that, I mourned the illusion of friendship I had so desperately clung to. I knew I couldn't continue like this. The constant emotional drain was unsustainable, chipping away at my spirit. The pain of their silence was becoming unbearable, a wound that refused to heal. Something had to change. I couldn't force them to accept me, but I could choose how I reacted to their rejection. The time for passive observation was over. It was time for a different kind of action. The realization was a painful turning point, marking the end of my naive hope and the beginning of a fierce determination to reclaim my peace and my power, far away from their silent judgment. The breaking point arrived not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet, devastating clarity. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was walking past the campus coffee shop when I overheard Chloe, Liam, and Sarah talking animatedly inside. They were discussing plans for a spring break trip, detailing flights and accommodations, and even laughing about a no-Maya rule for their group chat. My blood ran cold. The no-Maya rule. It wasn't just an oversight. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate, explicit exclusion. They had formalized my absence, making it a condition of their bond. The casual cruelty of it hit me with a force that stole my breath. I stood there, frozen, the sounds of their laughter echoing in my ears, a bitter symphony of betrayal. All the subtle slights, the unanswered messages, the whispered conversations, they coalesced into a single undeniable truth. I was not just left out. I was actively, intentionally kept out because of who I was. The pain was sharp, a searing burn in my chest, but beneath it, a new emotion began to simmer, a quiet, resolute anger. Not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that hardens your resolve, that fuels a fierce determination to protect yourself. I walked away from the coffee shop, not towards them, but away from everything they represented. The tears came later, in the privacy of my dorm room, hot and stinging, washing away the last vestiges of my naive hope. I cried not just for the lost friendship, but for the part of me that had so desperately wanted to belong. In that moment of raw vulnerability, I finally saw them for who they truly were, not friends, but fair-weather acquaintances who found comfort in a homogeneous circle. My presence, my blackness, was an inconvenience, a challenge to their comfortable narrative, and they had chosen to simply erase it. The realization was a liberation of sorts, a painful but necessary shedding of a burden I had unknowingly carried. I no longer had to question myself, no longer had to search for explanations. The truth, however ugly, was finally laid bare. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, my eyes red and swollen, but a flicker of defiance began to ignite within them. I had spent too long shrinking myself, trying to fit into a space that was never meant for me. No more. This was my turning point. I wouldn't waste another moment trying to earn their acceptance. My energy, my creativity, my worth, they deserved to be invested in places and with people who genuinely value them, not in those who sought to diminish me. I deleted their group chat from my phone, a symbolic act of severing ties. It felt like cutting off a dead limb, painful but essential for my survival and growth. The digital silence that followed was no longer a source of pain, but a promise of peace. I began to reclaim my time, my focus, and my identity. The hours I had spent agonizing over their silence, I now poured into my studies, my passion projects, and exploring the city on my own terms. New York still held magic. I just needed to find it with new eyes. The journey ahead felt daunting, but also exhilarating. I was stepping into the unknown, shedding the weight of false friendships, and embracing the terrifying freedom of self-reliance. This was my path, and I would walk it with my head held high. The pain of their rejection was a catalyst, transforming hurt into fuel for my own empowerment. I would not be defined by their inability to see my worth. Instead, I would define my own. This was not about revenge. It was about resilience. It was about proving to myself, not to them, that I was strong, capable, and deserving of genuine connection. My comeback wouldn't be for their benefit, but for mine. The silence of their group chat had spoken volumes, but my future actions would speak louder. I was ready to surprise everyone, starting with myself. With the painful realization behind me, a profound shift occurred within. The anger and hurt didn't disappear overnight, but they transformed into a fierce resolve. I began to actively reclaim my space, both physically and emotionally, starting with my daily routines and priorities. My phone, once a source of anxiety, became a tool for connection on my terms. I poured my newfound energy into my studies, excelling in my media courses. I spent hours in the university's digital labs, honing my skills in video editing, graphic design, and content creation. Each new technique mastered, each successful project completed, was a small victory, rebuilding my confidence piece by piece. I sought out new communities, joining student organizations focused on social justice and creative arts. Here, I found individuals who shared my values, who listened intently, and whose eyes lit up when I spoke about my passions. These were genuine connections, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. One particular group, a student-led digital storytelling collective, became my sanctuary. We discussed challenging topics, collaborated on impactful projects, and celebrated each other's successes. I found mentors and friends who saw my potential and encouraged me to amplify my voice, not diminish it. I started a personal project, a YouTube channel dedicated to exploring diverse narratives and social issues through short-form documentaries. It was a daunting step, putting myself out there, but it felt authentic. This was my platform, my voice, unburdened by external expectations. The initial videos were raw, sometimes imperfect, but they were mine. I talked about my experiences, interviewed fellow students from marginalized backgrounds, and highlighted stories that often went untold. The comment section, surprisingly, became a source of incredible support and encouragement. My self-worth, once shattered by the group chat exclusion, began to mend. I realized that their inability to see me was a reflection of their own limitations, not a judgment of my inherent value. My strength wasn't dependent on their approval. I started to enjoy New York again, exploring the city with a renewed sense of purpose. I visited museums, attended lectures, and discovered new neighborhoods, each experience adding to my personal growth and creative inspiration. The city felt vibrant once more. The occasional sightings of Chloe, Liam, and Sarah on campus no longer carried the same sting. I'd offer a polite nod, a brief smile, and continue on my way, no longer seeking their acknowledgement or approval. Their world felt distant, irrelevant to my burgeoning one. My focus was entirely on building my own empire, one video, one connection, one project at a time. I was learning that true power came not from external validation, but from internal resilience and the courage to pursue my own path. I became more intentional about who I spent my time with, prioritizing relationships that were reciprocal, respectful, and genuinely uplifting. My new friends celebrated my successes and offered comfort during challenges, without judgment or hidden agendas. This period of self-reclamation was transformative. I was not just recovering from a painful experience, I was actively constructing a stronger, more authentic version of myself. The pain had been a crucible, forging a new sense of purpose. I was no longer the girl who desperately wanted to fit in. I was Maya, a storyteller, a creator, a voice for the unheard, building a community that truly embraced diversity and celebrated individuality. The comeback wasn't about proving anything to them, it was about proving everything to myself. It was about transforming a wound into a source of power, a testament to my unwavering spirit. And soon the world, including those who had dismissed me, would begin to see the unexpected fruits of my quiet, determined labor. My comeback was brewing, ready to surprise everyone. The moment arrived subtly, then undeniably, a ripple that grew into a wave. My YouTube channel, Diverse Narratives NYC, had steadily gained traction, fueled by authentic storytelling and a growing community. One of my mini-documentaries, a powerful piece on microaggressions in urban environments, went viral, garnering hundreds of thousands of views and sparking widespread discussion. The video was shared across social media platforms, picked up by online news outlets, and even featured in a university-wide newsletter. It was a raw, honest portrayal of experiences like mine, resonating deeply with many viewers who had felt similarly unseen. My voice, once silenced in a small group chat, was now reaching a global audience. I started receiving interview requests, invitations to speak at campus events, and messages from people across the country expressing their gratitude. My work was making an impact, validating my decision to channel my pain into purpose. It was exhilarating to see my passion translate into meaningful change. Then came the inevitable encounter. I was giving a presentation at a university-wide diversity symposium, discussing the power of digital media in fostering understanding. As I spoke, confident and articulate, I saw them in the audience. Chloe, Liam, and Sarah, their faces a mixture of shock and something akin to disbelief. Their eyes widened as they recognized me, the friend they had so casually discarded. Their smug smiles were gone, replaced by expressions of genuine surprise, perhaps even a hint of discomfort. The girl they had dismissed as insignificant was now standing on a stage, commanding attention and respect. After my presentation, a small crowd gathered around me, eager to ask questions and offer congratulations. I saw Chloe approach, a hesitant smile on her face. "Maya! Wow, I had no idea you were doing all this," she stammered, her voice lacking its usual confident edge. I met her gaze calmly, a quiet strength radiating from within. "There's a lot you don't know, Chloe," I replied, my voice steady and clear. It wasn't accusatory, just a simple statement of fact, delivered without malice or bitterness. Liam and Sarah joined her, their expressions mirroring Chloe's. "Your video, it's really powerful," Liam offered, almost apologetically. Sarah nodded, avoiding my eyes. They looked almost uncomfortable, as if unsure how to navigate this new dynamic. I didn't need their validation, their belated praise. My comeback wasn't about making them feel bad. It was about my own journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Their surprise was merely a byproduct of my growth, not its ultimate goal. I politely excused myself, needing to connect with the people who truly supported me. As I walked away, I overheard snippets of their conversation, hushed whispers of, "I can't believe it," and "she's really changed." Their perception of me had been irrevocably altered. The moment was not one of triumph over them, but of profound personal vindication. I had proven to myself that my worth was inherent, not dependent on their acceptance. My voice, once stifled, was now a beacon for others. Their surprise was a testament to their limited vision, their inability to see beyond their own preconceived notions. My success was not a weapon against them, but a monument to my own resilience and determination. I had built something meaningful, something impactful, entirely on my own terms. My comeback wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about proving myself right, about embracing my authentic power. And as I left the symposium, surrounded by new allies and genuine supporters, I knew this was just the beginning. My strength had been unveiled, and it was a force to be reckoned with. Reflecting on my journey, the sting of exclusion has faded, replaced by a profound sense of purpose and peace. The painful experience of being left out of that group chat, of feeling invisible and unwanted, became the unexpected catalyst for my true liberation. It forced me to look inward, to trust my own instincts, and to build a foundation of self-worth that no one could ever shake. My YouTube channel, Diverse Narratives NYC, has grown beyond my wildest dreams. It's no longer just a personal project but a thriving platform, a community where marginalized voices are amplified and important conversations are sparked. I've hired a small team, all passionate about social justice and storytelling, and together we're creating content that genuinely makes a difference. I've had the privilege of speaking at national conferences, sharing my story not as a victim, but as a testament to resilience. My message is simple. Your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. True power comes from within, from embracing your authentic self, even when the world tries to diminish you. The connections I've forged since then are deep and meaningful. My new friends are a diverse group of individuals who celebrate my successes, support me through challenges, and truly see me for who I am. We build each other up, fostering a space of genuine acceptance and mutual respect, a stark contrast to the superficiality I once endured. I still encounter Chloe, Liam, and Sarah occasionally. They sometimes try to engage, offering awkward compliments on my work, or hinting at a desire to reconnect. I respond kindly, but firmly, maintaining a polite distance. There's no bitterness, just a clear understanding that our paths diverged, and mine led to a place of greater authenticity and purpose. The comeback wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my narrative. It was about transforming pain into power, silence into a resounding voice. My success isn't defined by external validation, but by the impact I make and the integrity with which I live my life. New York City, once a place of initial hope and subsequent heartbreak, has become my home. It's a city that challenges and inspires, a place where I've learned to navigate complexities and find my unique rhythm. I've built a life here that is authentically mine, reflecting my values and my vision. My journey has taught me that sometimes the greatest rejections are actually redirections. They push you off a path that wasn't meant for you, forcing you to discover a stronger, more fulfilling one. The silence of that group chat ultimately empowered me to find my own voice and build my own platform. To anyone out there feeling unseen, unheard, or left out, your story matters. Your voice is powerful. Don't let anyone else define your worth or dim your light. Channel your pain into purpose and watch how your comeback surprises not just them, but yourself. Find your tribe, the people who truly uplift you, and invest in yourself. Your resilience is your superpower, and your authenticity is your greatest asset. Keep shining, keep creating, and keep speaking your truth. My legacy won't be about who left me out, but about how I use that experience to build a bridge for others. It's about the community I've fostered, the conversations I've started, and the message of empowerment I continue to share. I am Maya, and this is my story. It's a story of exclusion, yes, but more importantly, it's a story of unwavering strength, profound self-discovery, and the power of finding your own voice against all odds. My comeback was not just a moment, it's a continuous journey of living authentically and inspiring others to do the same. And that, truly, is the greatest surprise of all.